welcome to this extra edition of the Spark of Knowledge. The Spark of Knowledge that has been made possible by the StatuMentis Academy. And if you like this way of sharing knowledge, please check out our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel of the StatuMentis Academy, or at least give this video a like. I truly appreciate it, and it helps my channel grow and to reach more people, so I would appreciate that. My previous Spark of Knowledge was about the coronavirus and the difficulties that we're facing, with this virus, because our whole surrounding is threatening, it's unpredictable, and you see that those things are ingredients for our mental health. And I work a lot with athletes, and these days I get a lot of questions about those are anxiety related, those are related to an excessive kind of worrying. And so I felt, well, let's talk about that a little bit more today, because those are kind of like recurrent questions that I get, and this is an opportunity for me to address it, and maybe more of you can benefit from this information. One thing I want to say, like we see under stress, so when the arousal levels increases, when there are more stressors around us, and this is a very good example of a huge stressor, the coronavirus, that's around all of us, you see that, our conscious get more clear. So when we get under stress, we really get more internal. And what I mean with that is that we kind of like the things that we are thinking, the thoughts that we are having are becoming way more intrusive, more clear. I always like to give an example, and maybe we not all have experienced it, but we kind of like have an idea with it. I say when you get into a car accident, you usually hear, maybe you experience yourself, I hope not, but you usually hear of people that have been in a car accident that they say like, the seconds that it all happened, it like seems like hours. My conscience was so clear. It seems to take such a long time before actually, that crash happens. And that's because we get this huge impulse of stress, which makes our conscious awareness, that increases a lot. So everything gets very, very clear. And the same is with this. It's not like such a sudden stressor, but it's a very intense stressor that is kind of like enduring for a longer time. So you see that more people get internal, more people really experience on a conscious level their thinking pattern. And what we usually see, if you not actively step out of that cycle, you will stay in it. And the problem of that is when we start thinking, our brain works in a way that we get associative. So we start with problem A, and over time, and that can go actually quicker than we think, we get a problem C, D, E, F, G, and on and on and on and on. And we get actually farther away from where we started, and we're creating even more questions, more problems, more doubt. And we get into this flat spin of worrying. So it's very important if you notice yourself like, hey, when now this huge stressor is around me, and that's all things that we kind of like all are dealing with, I notice that, I start worrying more. Worrying leads to becoming fearful. It's very important to kind of like sit yourself down and get yourself out of that cycle. No matter how realistic your fear or your worries might be, it doesn't help you to spend energy kind of like, staying in that worrying cycle, because, you're not solving anything. You're just sitting here losing time and making problems even more bigger. So it's important to get yourself out of it. The best thing you can do if you notice that you are fearful or you're in that vicious cycle of worrying is to start taking actions. And for a lot of people, it's like, oh, wow, that sounds like a lot. How do I do that? Even the smallest amount of action is action. If it's all very overwhelming or you really don't know where to start, I always say it's a good thing to start writing down the 3 problems or the 3 topics that you're worrying most about. Just write them down and prioritize them. Like, okay, this weighs the heaviest if I had to rate it, second and third. And then we start with number 1, okay? Because otherwise it gets too much, and you get stranded. So we start with number 1. And then we kind of like get sub-steps in that. Like, okay, so this is the problem. I will give you an example. Let's say this morning I talked to a soccer player that I work with for years, and he's very scared with this crisis, and also kind of like the inability to, play matches, so you don't really have that game rhythm, the inability to really kind of like fulfill the training that you used to do. So kind of like being impaired in your physical preparation, your physical readiness. All those things started to kind of like to clutter up in his mind. Fear for kind of like, how will my career go after this season? It feels like a lost year. So all these things, gathered together and, led to kind of like this burst of anxiety. So what I say first is like, okay, first we have to recognize this is the situation, it is that it is. No matter how much we worry, no matter how much we get angry, we cannot solve that. So, okay, this is what we have to work with. And that's always step one that I say to my people. It's like, what do we have to work with? You're still a soccer player. You still got your same skills. You're doing this for years and years and years. This very difficult situation does not get anything off of that. So we still have all that. So let's focus now on what we can do. We made a list for him, the problem was a lot kind of like his technique, his physical training, because this is a player that lives in Spain. It's one of the countries that is really on lockdown, so there's very little room to do anything. So he kind of like made a list, being creative, what physical game-related activities he could do, what tactical he could kind of like think. Because for me, it's always like when things are taken away from me, I start kind of like, see, okay, I cannot do this and this now, but now I can focus my attention on things I usually do not really have time for, but I actually should be doing. So actually I take my weaknesses, because there are things, you don't do them a lot, you should be doing them, you don't do them a lot, and I think, okay, let's do those things now. So we really kind of like made a list of those things, and we kind of like gave him a very clear assignment. Okay, you got this and this and this, start working on that and that and that. So it's actually a plan of action. And what you notice when you start kind of like taking that action is the biggest antidote against fear, against worrying, because you take yourself from the internal phase to the external phase. So you take yourself literally out of your head, and start kind of like doing external things, taking action. So that's my biggest thing, when you really feel like, okay, this virus, all that uncertainty, all the scary things we hear on the news, which are very real. Like I said, we're forming a new reality. It will have a beginning, it will have an end. But the reality would be a little bit different than we are used to. But how can I make sure that I'm good to myself, that I put myself in the best mental state, that I'm prepared for everything that, the next day will bring, because we have to take it day to day. What can I do for myself? And if you feel that you worry too much, or the fear, has the best of you, try to write it down. Take your emotion out of it. Try to write it down, what that thing that is really bothering you, and try to make very small steps that you say, okay, but how can I get myself out of here? What can I do to make this better for myself? And sometimes it's just as easy to just do something else which is not related to the problem that you have, but just start taking action. Listen to music, watch a movie that you wanted to watch but you never had time for. Go outside, play with your children, do all those things that you always put down to the side because like, oh, I'm too busy. Because and that's like the true essence of it, and that's something that I really want to emphasize also with you and also with the people that I work with. Everything that kind of like closes also gets a new opportunity into the daylight. It's just how it is. So, and you really have to search for those opportunities that this situation gives, because the good thing about that is you take things that are not really developed in that good way, you give them the opportunity to grow. And if you think about it in that way, you will notice that the worrying, the anxiety, the fear that you're feeling will get less and less and less. It was my pleasure to talk to you. Again, if you like this video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, or at least give this video a like. And I'm very much looking forward to talk to you in the regular Spark of Knowledge. Will be on Monday. And all I want to say is, keep each other safe and have a wonderful day.